Hi, my name is Melissa Ryan, and I am the mother of Christopher Ryan, who will be up here with me later. But I'm here today to share with you our experience with the healing generator. My son Christopher was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 7 months. Now, as a young parent, I didn't know what leukemia was, and I did not know that it was cancer. I was soon to find that out. We went to St. Jude's in Memphis, Tennessee, which is the leading cancer research hospital in the country, in the world, in my opinion. We had the best doctors, we had the best nurses, just the best everything. Christopher had the best medical care there was. After 9 months of treatment, he relapsed and his cancer came back. Now, as a mom, for me, that was the worst day of my life, because my baby had been through 9 months of poison, toxic poison pumped into his body to kill the cancer, and yet the cancer was back. So it was devastating to us when he relapsed. He had to go on relapse protocol, which was a mixture of radiation and extra heavy-duty chemotherapy. And he became very, very ill. He became just on the brink of death daily. The doctors gave him less than 10% chance to live. During this time, we prayed a lot, and we never allowed anyone to speak death over Christopher. We prayed and prayed, and we knew that God was a good God. We knew God healed people. We knew Jesus healed. We knew He sent His Son to die for us, and that Jesus took stripes on His back for our healing. And we knew that, and we knew that our son could be healed. So we just continued to pray. We continued to stand in faith. And on June 17, 1993, Christopher received a bone marrow transplant. And at that point, the doctors again said less than 10% chance of survival because it was an unrelated donor. A wonderful woman from Wisconsin named Cindy Clausen was Christopher's bone marrow donor. And we sang happy birthday to him. We felt like it was a new birth for him. And we felt like this donor was his second mom. Anyway, the bone marrow transplant was really difficult in that we were in the hospital, literally in the hospital, for 3 solid months. He wasn't allowed to leave his room. His counts remained really low, all his blood counts. He had to be kept in a very sterile environment. During that time, 5 other children were transplanted at the same time as Christopher. And one by one, they got better, they got to go home, they got to get on with their normal lives. And I would sit there in the hospital and say, I know my son's gonna live. I know my son's gonna live. And yet it didn't look like my son was gonna live. We finally got out of the hospital and went to a hotel, and we had to stay in a hotel another few months before we could actually leave Memphis and go home. And the 5 children that were transplanted the same time Christopher was, one by one, they came back and they lost it. I'm sorry. Now, as a mom, that was really scary for me because they all had better prognosis than my son had, and they lost their battles. We finally did get to go home. Christopher did get better, and Christopher was a miracle, and I knew in my heart that was a miracle from God. It might have been a slow miracle on my timetable, but it was a miracle nonetheless. And we give Him all the glory and all the honor for that miracle. Meanwhile, Christopher had to have some experimental treatments done on him to combat the Epstein-Barr virus, which children who have bone marrow transplants are susceptible to a myriad of things. And one of the things is the Epstein-Barr virus. And he had some experimental treatments. We flew back once a week so he could have these injections of what they were mouse genes treated with T cells that, unless you're a doctor, I don't guess you'd understand, because I don't. And they said that he was the 3rd child ever to receive this therapy, and he might live, he might die, because one child lived, one child died, and we were the 3rd, and we could do it if we wanted to. So we prayed about that decision, and we went ahead with the mouse gene therapy. And it worked for Christopher, and now it is a common thing that they do on bone marrow transplant patients that helps combat the Epstein-Barr virus, which can kill a bone marrow transplant patient. So fast forward a few years, and Christopher is doing great medically. He has a few little problems. He has some thyroid problems. He's starting to have some growth problems. He has some behavioral problems. And, you know, we're not real concerned. We're very happy that he's doing great. He's progressing. He doesn't have cancer. You know, once you've had cancer, that's, you know, everything else pales into comparison to that. So a couple more years go by and things in his body start breaking down. Last year, in August of 2003, we go to St. Jude's every 6 months for checkups. And we had gone for a checkup, and they called me the day I got home and said, "You need to come back." And I said, "Well, I'm not coming back. I was just there." And they said, "No, you don't understand. You need to come back. Christopher needs surgery on his hips. If he doesn't have the surgery right away, he may never walk again." So what was I going to do? So I went to Christopher and I approached him and I said, "Look, we've got to go back to Memphis." Well, the day he was going to have his surgery was his birthday. And I said, "You know, you're going to have surgery on your birthday." And he looked at me and he said, "That's okay, Mom. At least I get to have another birthday." And that just really touched my heart as a mom. So we go back to Memphis. We have the surgery on his hips. They put pins in his hips. He was in a wheelchair for a couple of months. And we thought, okay, this is fine. You know, this is a side effect of the radiation. No big deal. Well, then he started throwing up. And he kept throwing up and throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. He threw up for months. We took him to doctor after doctor. They could not find out and figure out what was wrong with Christopher. Now, as a mom, I'd already seen him go through so much. I'd already seen my baby suffer more than most people have to suffer in a lifetime. And I did not want to see my child have to go through any more. I knew God had healed him, and I knew God had given us a miracle. And I didn't understand why he was having to suffer even more. I knew that that just was not God's will for him. I read the Bible, I know what it says, and nowhere does it say, "I'm going to heal you and give you a miracle and then make you suffer." That's not what it says. And after 2 months, they finally figured out that he had a sliding hiatal hernia. Part of his stomach was coming up in his esophagus. This went on through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, New Year's, and then finally in the middle of January, he had stomach surgery where they wrapped his stomach around his esophagus. After that, we thought everything was fine. We thought, okay, this was one weird little thing, no big deal. It's over. So just 2 major surgeries in 1 year. Okay, we can deal with that. So let's move on. About 2 weeks later, he started throwing up again. Took him back to the doctors. They went in, they dilated his esophagus because it had swollen to the point where no food was getting through. So after the dilation, he started eating regularly. It was another week, he started throwing up again. Took him back to the doctor. They said, "You know, we could dilate him again, but you're going to end up with the same problem." And at this point, we just threw up our hands and said, "You know, we're just going to pray. We've done all we can do. We have nothing else to do for this child but pray." So we did put him on a liquid diet for about 3 weeks, as long as he could tolerate it. Meantime, we were going to Memphis for another checkup at St. Jude's, and I mentioned to his doctors, "Hey, you know, he's had this stomach surgery and he's still throwing up and we don't understand what's going on." And they said, "Well, you need to come back for tests because we really need to know what's going on with him. He could have graft versus host disease. He could, you know, his stomach could be attacking himself internally." So they also said his cortisol levels were really low, his adrenal gland function. And when he was a little kid, right after bone marrow transplant, one of the things that they would keep a constant eye on was his adrenal gland function. to make sure his cortisol levels were high enough, and for a while we had to carry around a shot of adrenaline in case he got in an accident, because what I was told by the St. Jude's doctors was stress causes your body to deplete itself of adrenaline, and once that's gone, if there's to be a traumatic injury to the body, if you don't have that adrenaline, you die. So his cortisol levels were low. Well, at that point, that cortisol levels, I had talked to Jennifer about that before. I had talked to her in the hallway about it once, about the cortisol levels, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to Jennifer and see if she knows of any natural remedy, and I'm going to ask her to pray for Chris and see if she knows anything I can do about this. So I went to Jennifer one night after services, and I said, you know, his cortisol levels are low, we have to go back. And you know, Jennifer just got this twinkle in her eye, like she was listening to the Holy Spirit and not really what I was saying. And she said, you know, I'm going to give you the phone number of a man that I think can help you. He was instrumental in my own healing, and you call him. You call him. So I got his phone number. I called him the very next day, and it was Dr. Alex Loyd. That very day, he emailed me the Healing Generator package. I read it that day. I went over it. It sounded great to me, because when you're desperate, you will try anything. And we had done the natural remedies on Christopher. We had done amino acids, vitamins, supplements, herbals, you name it, we had done it. And you know, he was still throwing up, and the doctors were at a loss, and they didn't know what was going on. So I read through the Healing Generator that night. The very next morning, I started it on Christopher, and I started doing it on myself, because, you know, I want to make sure I was good too, to do it on Chris. And we had immediate results from the very first time I did it on Christopher. He got up from our little session just happier than I had seen him in a long time. He was laughing, he was playing, he seemed to have a lot of energy that he hadn't had in the past few months. He was very lethargic and just very tired all of the time. And we had exactly 12 days from the time we started the Healing Generator to the time we had to be in Memphis, where they were going to do just a battery of tests on him to find out why he was still throwing up. Well, 12 days is the initial protocol for the Healing Generator. We did the 12 days. We got back into St. Jude's. We did CT scans, MRIs, upper GIs, blood work, I mean, you name it, he did it. And the results of every single one of those tests, and I have one of them right here with me, was clear. The final report says the Nissen fundoplication in place, normal examination, no sign of gastroesophageal reflux was seen. There was not anything, and he had stopped throwing up at this point, so I was convinced. The other thing that happened with the Healing Generator after starting it was, in those 12 days, Christopher grew a centimeter. Now, Christopher has to take growth hormone shots every single night, and he has since he was 6 years old. He grew a centimeter. Normal growth for him is 2 to 3 centimeters in 1 year. Now, we've continued, since this is in July, we've continued to do the Healing Generator. And in the past month, he has grown 3 shoe sizes. And your foot is the first part of your body to grow. So when your foot grows, you know you're getting ready to shoot up. Well, Christopher's getting ready to shoot up 3 shoe sizes in 1 month. And I am just praising God. And I just thank Dr. Alex and his Healing Generator. I thank him that he was obedient, that he was asking and seeking and knocking, because I truly believe that the Lord revealed this to Dr. Alex, and I truly believe that Dr. Alex is being used to bring hope, healing, and wholeness to so many people. And that's my heart today. Share our story with you so that you can find hope and find healing and find wholeness. Try the Healing Generator. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Christopher, come here. This is my son, Christopher. Say hi, Chris.
Hi.
Tell him how much better you feel. Oh, that's money. Okay. You want to tell about the Healing Generator? Do you like when I do it on you? Okay. I'm going to read you a little poem that Christopher wrote a couple of years ago. And You know, the healing generator is truly an answer to prayer for both of us. We have been praying a very long time for every molecule in Christopher's body to come in alignment with the Word of God. He wrote this poem, and I want to share it with you. It's called I Am. I am a fierce dinosaur. I wonder if I have a friend. I hear cries of others like me. I see others like me. I want to be strong. I am a fierce dinosaur. I pretend that I have a home. I feel happy. I touch things like meat. I worry that I will die. I cry if I bite my tail. I am a fierce dinosaur. I understand what it feels like to be a dinosaur. I dream that I am the strongest dinosaur. I try to be the biggest dinosaur. I hope I live. I am a fierce dinosaur. And you know what? He is living, and he's going to live, and I have medical bills here totaling over $1 million. What $1 million in medical bills could not do for Christopher, the healing generator has done for him. Thank you.